The most dangerous thing I ever did was not falling in love with Adrian Romano. It was trying to leave him. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the mansion like impatient fingers demanding to be let in. Every flash of lightning painted the marble hallway in silver for a heartbeat before darkness swallowed it again. I stood at the foot of the grand staircase with a suitcase in one hand and my passport in the other. My pulse was so loud I could barely hear the storm. For 3 months, I had planned this moment. 3 months of pretending everything was normal. 3 months of smiling across dinner tables and accepting gifts I never asked for. 3 months of carrying a secret that grew heavier every day. Tonight, I was finally leaving. I checked the time on my phone. 2:11 a.m. The private driver I had hired under a fake name would arrive in less than 10 minutes. After that, I would be on a flight to Seattle, 2,800 miles away from New York, 2,800 miles away from Adrian. The thought should have made me feel relieved. Instead, it felt like I was trying to breathe underwater. I moved quietly through the hallway. The mansion was silent. No staff, no security, no footsteps echoing through the endless corridors. Adrian had flown to Chicago that morning for a business meeting. At least, that was what everyone believed. I reached the front entrance and stared at the massive black doors. Freedom was on the other side. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. Then my eyes drifted to the small white envelope sitting on a table beside the door. The letter. For pages. 43 attempts before I finally wrote the version I left behind. No accusations. No anger. No dramatic goodbye. Just the truth. I can't stay. I closed my eyes. Images flooded my mind anyway. Adrian standing beside me on the balcony overlooking Manhattan. Adrian bringing coffee to my classroom after a 14-hour day. Adrian remembering the name of every student I taught. Adrian looking at me as if I was the only person in a city of 8 million people. The memories hurt because they were real, but so was the secret I had discovered. The secret hidden inside a locked file cabinet in his private office. A secret connected to my father. A secret Adrian never told me. My phone vibrated. The driver. He was outside. This was it. I wrapped my fingers around the door handle and pulled. Cold air rushed inside. Rain scented the night. My heart leaped. One more step, and I would be gone. Going somewhere. The voice came from behind me. Low. Calm. Familiar. Every muscle in my body froze. Slowly, I turned around. Adrian Romano stood at the end of the hallway, one hand in his pocket, his blue eyes fixed on mine. And in that moment, I realized he had known all along. I could not breathe. I could not move. I could only stare at him. Adrian Romano stood beneath the chandelier light, as if he had been there the entire time, waiting for this exact moment. The storm raged outside, but somehow the silence between us felt louder. His gaze dropped briefly to the suitcase beside my leg, then back to my face. He looked tired. Not angry. Not surprised. Just tired. That frightened me more than anything. How long? He asked quietly. My throat tightened. How long what? How long have you been planning this? The question landed like a stone in my chest. Because he was not asking if I was leaving. He already knew. He wanted to know how long I had been lying. I looked away first. Long enough. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Rain streaked down the glass doors behind me. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the city. Adrian took a slow breath. You should have talked to me. A bitter laugh escaped before I could stop it. Talk to you. I shook my head. You hid the truth from me for months. His expression changed slightly. Not guilt. Not denial. Something harder to read. Olivia. Do not. My voice cracked. Do not say my name like that. The words surprised both of us. I could see it in his eyes. For months I had swallowed every question, every doubt, every fear. Tonight there was nothing left to swallow. You knew about my father. My hands trembled. You knew things about him that I never knew. You had files, reports, names, dates. What? Adrian remained still. Too still. Because some truths are complicated. That is not an answer. It is the only answer I can give right now. I stared at him in disbelief. Even now he was protecting something. Or someone. The realization hurt more than I wanted to admit. I picked up my suitcase. Move. His jaw tightened. You are making a mistake. Maybe. I stepped toward the door. But it is my mistake to make. For the first time since I met him, Adrian looked uncertain. Just for a second. A tiny crack in the armor. Then he reached into his jacket pocket. My heartbeat stopped. Slowly, He pulled out a folded photograph. I recognized it instantly. It was old, worn at the corners. My father stood beside a younger Adrian Romano, both of them smiling at the camera. My breath caught. I had never seen that picture before. "Where did you get that?" I whispered. Adrian looked down at the photograph. His voice was almost lost beneath the storm. "Your father saved my life." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Every thought vanished. Every certainty disappeared. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Adrian lifted his eyes to mine. And that is only the beginning of the story. Then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. For the first time that night, I saw genuine concern flash across his face. The sound of the phone seemed unnaturally loud in the silent hallway. Adrian did not answer immediately. He stared at the screen for a fraction of a second, and something in his expression changed. It was subtle. Most people would have missed it. I did not, because for nearly a year, I had learned to read the smallest shifts in his face. The tiny tightening of his jaw, the slight narrowing of his eyes, the way his shoulders became rigid whenever something threatened the carefully controlled world he had built around himself. He answered on the third ring. "What happened?" His voice was calm. Too calm. He listened without speaking. The rain continued tapping against the glass doors beside me. Seconds passed. Then another. Finally, Adrian lowered the phone. "I need to leave." I almost laughed. After everything that had just happened, that was what he chose to say. "Good." My voice sounded colder than I felt. "Then we both get what we want." He looked at me for a long moment. "Olivia, listen to me carefully." I hated the concern in his voice. I hated that a part of me still responded to it. "No." I picked up my suitcase again. "You have had months to explain. I am done listening." His gaze shifted toward the windows, toward the darkness outside, then back to me. "Something is happening. Something is always happening. Not like this." The words hung between us. For the first time, uncertainty flickered inside me. Adrian was not a man who exaggerated. If anything, he minimized problems. He absorbed pressure so nobody else had to see it. Yet now he looked genuinely troubled. My phone buzzed. I frowned and glanced at the screen. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then another message appeared. And another. My stomach tightened. The first message contained only a photograph. I froze. It was me, standing outside my school 3 days earlier. The second image showed me carrying groceries into my apartment last week. The third was taken only hours ago. Me entering Adrian's mansion. Cold spread through my chest. I looked up slowly. Adrian saw my expression immediately. "What is it?" I could not answer. My fingers felt numb as I handed him the phone. He studied the images. The color drained from his face. Not much. Just enough. The effect was terrifying, because I had never seen Adrian Romano afraid before. The final message arrived while he was looking at the screen. Neither of us spoke, for simple words appeared beneath the photographs. "We found her first." The hallway suddenly felt smaller. The air felt heavier. Adrian handed the phone back. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "You cannot leave tonight." Anger immediately surged through me. "You do not get to decide that. This is not about control. That is rich coming from you." His eyes locked onto mine. "Olivia, I am trying to keep you safe." Before I could respond, headlights swept across the mansion windows, bright beams cutting through the rain. A vehicle had entered the driveway. Then a second. Then a third. Adrian moved toward the window and looked outside. The expression on his face told me everything. Whoever had arrived was not expected. The headlights remained fixed on the rain-soaked driveway, like silent eyes staring back at the mansion. I stood frozen beside the front door while Adrian watched through the window. The storm blurred everything beyond the glass, turning the outside world into a watercolor of shadows and light. Then one of the vehicles stopped. Another pulled in behind it. Nobody got out. Nobody moved. The waiting felt worse than action. Adrian pulled out his phone and made a call. "Who was at the gate?" His voice was calm again, but I knew him well enough to hear the tension underneath. He listened for several seconds. The muscles in his jaw tightened. "Do not let anyone inside until I say so." He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. "What is happening?" I asked. He looked at me, really looked at me, as if trying to memorize my face. "The people who sent those photographs know where you are." My stomach dropped. "Who are they?" "I do not know yet." "That is impossible." The words came out sharper than I intended. "You always know everything." A faint shadow crossed his face. "Not everything." The answer surprised me, because it sounded honest. Outside, Lightning flashed across the sky. For an instant, the entire driveway lit up like daylight. I could make out silhouettes standing beside one of the vehicles. Waiting. Watching. My pulse quickened. This is because of my father, is it not? Adrian remained silent. That silence was answer enough. I took a step toward him. You owe me the truth. He closed his eyes briefly. Just for a second. Then he nodded. You are right. The words felt strange coming from him. Adrian Romano was not a man who admitted mistakes. Your father was more than a friend to me. His voice softened. When I was 23 years old, I made a decision that nearly destroyed my future. Everyone walked away from me except one person. He paused. Your father stayed. The rain tapped steadily against the windows. I listened without breathing. He protected me when I did not deserve it. He gave me a second chance. Adrian glanced toward the photograph still lying on the floor. Everything I built afterward started. Because of him. My eyes dropped to the image. To my father's smile. To the version of him I had never known. Then why keep it secret? I whispered. Pain flickered across Adrian's face. Real pain. Because the people who blamed me for what happened back then never stopped looking for someone to punish. The words settled heavily between us. Suddenly, the messages, the photographs, the strange vehicles outside. Everything felt connected. You think they are looking for me? Adrian did not answer immediately. I think they realized how much you matter to me. The room went silent. My heart stumbled. He had never said anything like that before. Not directly. Not without hiding behind careful words and controlled expressions. Before I could respond, another message appeared on my phone. The screen lit up in my trembling hand. A single sentence. No name. No explanation. Just 6 words that made the blood drain from my face. Ask Adrian about December 17th. I slowly lifted my eyes toward him. The moment he saw my expression, he knew something had changed. My fingers tightened around the phone until my knuckles turned white. Ask Adrian about December 17th. I read the message 3 times, hoping the words would somehow change. They did not. Adrian stood across from me beneath the warm chandelier light. But suddenly, he felt miles away. The storm outside rattled the windows. The vehicles remained parked in the driveway. Waiting. Watching. And now there was a date. One specific date that someone wanted me to know about. What happened on December 17th? I asked. Adrian did not answer immediately. His eyes dropped to the screen in my hand. Then to the floor. Then back to me. That hesitation told me everything. He knew exactly what the message meant. Olivia. His voice was quiet. Careful. What happened on December 17th? I repeated. This time my words came out sharper. Tell me the truth. A long silence followed. I could almost hear the clock ticking somewhere deeper inside the mansion. Adrian walked toward the nearest window and looked out into the rain. For the first time since I had met him, he seemed unsure of what to say. It was the day? Your father disappeared. The room spun. I stared at him. What? My father had died when I was 16. At least that was what I had always been told. A car accident. A tragedy. A closed chapter. Adrian slowly turned toward me. That was the date everything changed. I felt cold all over. Why are you talking like that? He exhaled heavily. Because there are things you do not know. My heart pounded harder. Then tell me. Another flash of lightning illuminated the room. For a brief second, the shadows disappeared. Adrian looked older somehow. More tired. The accident report was real, he said. But it was not the whole story. I could barely process the words. You are saying someone lied? I am saying someone buried the truth. My breath caught. Every memory I had of my father suddenly felt unstable. Every story, every photograph, every unanswered question. Who buried it? I whispered. Adrian opened his mouth to answer. Then the security system chimed. Once, twice, 3 times. A sharp electronic sound that echoed through the mansion. Adrian's head snapped toward the entry monitor mounted on the wall. His expression darkened immediately. What is it? I asked. He crossed the room in seconds and checked the screen. I followed behind him. Several security cameras appeared on the display. The front gate, the driveway, the road beyond the property. My stomach dropped. More vehicles had arrived. Not 3 anymore. 6. Maybe 7. Rain washed across the camera lenses. But even through the storm it was obvious that something was wrong. Nobody was leaving. Nobody was approaching. They were simply surrounding the estate. Watching. Waiting. The phone in my hand buzzed again. Another message. My pulse thundered in my ears as I opened it. This time there was no photograph, no date, just one sentence. Tell him what happened to her. I looked up slowly. Adrian had already gone pale. And in that terrifying moment, I realized the message was not talking about my father. It was talking about my mother. The message remained on the screen like a wound that refused to close. Tell him what happened to her. My mother. Not my father. Not December 17th. My mother. The woman whose smile still lived in the faded photographs stored in a box beneath my bed. The woman who used to sing while making pancakes on Saturday mornings. The woman I lost before I was old enough to understand what loss really meant. I slowly lowered the phone. My hands were trembling. What does that mean? Adrian did not answer. The silence was unbearable. Adrian. My voice cracked. What does it mean? Outside, rain continued pouring across the driveway. The vehicles remained motionless beyond the gates. Watching. Waiting. The entire world felt suspended between one heartbeat and the next. Adrian looked away first. That terrified me more than any answer could have. Because Adrian Romano never looked away. Your mother was not supposed to be involved, he said quietly. I stared at him. Involved in what? He rubbed a hand across his face. For the first time since I had met him, he looked exhausted. Not physically, emotionally, like he had been carrying something for years and no longer knew how to hold it. There was an investigation. The words sounded distant. Careful. Years ago, before you were born, long before I met your father. My pulse hammered inside my ears. An investigation into what? Corruption. Financial crimes. Powerful people protecting powerful people. Lightning flashed across the windows. The security monitors reflected against the marble walls. Adrian took a slow breath. Your mother discovered something she was never supposed to find. My stomach tightened. Every instinct told me I was standing at the edge of a truth that could change everything. Did she die because of it? The question barely left my lips. Adrian closed his eyes. Just for a second. Then he nodded once. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of a nearby table to steady myself. Every story I had been told growing up suddenly felt incomplete. Carefully edited. Sanitized. Safe. My father knew. I whispered. Adrian nodded again. He spent the rest of his life trying to protect you from the consequences. Tears burned behind my eyes. I hated them. Hated feeling weak. Hated feeling lost. Most of all, I hated the realization that Adrian had known pieces of my family's story. All along. You should have told me. His expression softened. I wanted to. Then why did you not? He looked directly into my eyes. Because the moment you knew the truth, you became a target again. The words hit me harder than I expected. Not because they sounded dramatic. Because I believed him. Deep down, I believed every word. Suddenly the security monitor beeped. Once. Then again. Adrian turned sharply toward the screen. One of the vehicles outside was moving. Slowly. Deliberately. It rolled forward through the rain until it stopped directly in front of the main gate. Then someone stepped out carrying a small package. No threats. No weapons. Just a box. My phone vibrated one final time. A new message appeared. Open the package. She deserves to know everything. The package sat on the security desk like a question nobody wanted to answer. Rain streaked across the camera feed as the person who delivered it returned to the waiting vehicle without looking back. Every instinct told me not to touch it. Every instinct told me to walk away. But my entire life had become a collection of unanswered questions, and I was tired of living inside them. Adrian stood beside me, silent, watching, the same way he had watched me from across crowded rooms. The same way he had watched me when he thought I was not paying attention. Except now there was something different in his eyes. Fear. Not for himself. For me. One of the security staff carried the package into the mansion and placed it carefully on the marble table in front of us. It was smaller than I expected. Plain brown cardboard. No return address. No markings. Nothing. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside was a single folder. Cream-colored. Old. Worn around the edges. The moment I saw my mother's name typed across the front, my knees nearly gave out. Olivia and Carter. I swallowed hard. My mother. Adrian stepped forward. You do not have to do this tonight. I looked at him. I think I do. The folder felt heavier than it should have. I opened it slowly. Photographs. Newspaper clippings. Documents. Handwritten notes. My eyes moved across the pages as fragments of a story I had never known began assembling themselves together. My mother had been an investigative journalist. Not a teacher like I had always believed. not a freelance writer, an investigative journalist, someone who spent years exposing corruption hidden behind wealth and influence. My chest tightened. Another page, another article, another photograph. Then I found a picture that made my breath catch. A younger version of my father standing beside my mother. And beside them stood Adrian, 23 years old. Serious, focused, looking directly at the camera. I stared at the image. You knew them both. Adrian nodded slowly. Yes. The room felt impossibly quiet. How close were you? I asked. He looked down at the photograph. Your parents were my family before I had one of my own. Tears burned behind my eyes. Every answer seemed to create 10 new questions. I turned another page, then another, until I reached a sealed envelope hidden near the back of the folder. My name was written across it in familiar handwriting. My father's handwriting. My heart stopped. The letter was addressed to me, not to anyone else. Me. I looked at the date. 17 years ago. My hands shook as I opened it. The paper crackled softly. The first line blurred through my tears. If you are reading this, it means the truth finally found you. A sob caught in my throat. Adrian remained silent beside me, respecting the moment, letting me breathe. I continued reading. Then I reached a sentence that changed everything. I read it once, twice, 3 times, certain I had misunderstood. But the words never changed. Your mother did not die because of what she discovered. She died protecting someone. Slowly, I lifted my eyes toward Adrian Romano. Because deep inside, I already knew who that someone was. The words blurred in front of me. I blinked hard and read the sentence again, hoping I had misunderstood it. I had not. My mother did not die because of what she discovered. She died protecting someone. My gaze slowly lifted from the letter to Adrian. The storm outside seemed farther away now. The rain still fell. The security monitors still glowed across the walls. The vehicles still waited beyond the gates. Yet none of it mattered. Not compared to the question forming inside my chest. Adrian stood perfectly still. He already knew what I was thinking. He had known before I even looked up. It was you, I whispered. My voice sounded small in the enormous room. She was protecting you. Adrian lowered his eyes. He did not deny it. Somehow that hurt more than if he had. Tears filled my vision. Not from anger. Not entirely. From grief. From confusion. From realizing that the story of my family had never belonged to me. Other people had been carrying pieces of it for years while I lived inside a version carefully edited for my protection. Why? I asked. Why would she do that? Adrian walked toward the window and stared into the darkness beyond the glass. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he spoke so quietly I almost did not hear him. Because your mother believed people deserved second chances. The answer settled heavily between us. He turned toward me. I was not the man you know now. His expression remained calm, but there was sadness behind it. Deep sadness. I was reckless, angry, convinced the world had already decided who I would become. His eyes drifted toward the old photograph resting on the table. Your parents disagreed. I looked down at the letter again. The handwriting suddenly felt alive, as if my father were standing beside me after all these years, watching, waiting for me to understand. Adrian continued. Your mother saw something worth saving in me long before I saw it in myself. A lump formed in my throat. And my father? Adrian smiled faintly, the first genuine smile I had seen all night. Your father never stopped believing people could change. Silence filled the room again. Softer this time. Less hostile. The anger I had carried for months began to shift into something else. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Understanding. Maybe the beginning of it. Then I noticed another folded page inside the envelope. My heart skipped. Slowly, I unfolded it. A second letter. Shorter. Newer. Different handwriting. My breath caught immediately. It belonged to Adrian. The date at the top was from 11 months ago. 11 months. Exactly when he had first entered my life. My pulse quickened as I read the first line. If Olivia ever learns the truth, she will probably hate me. I looked up sharply. Adrian's face went pale. He clearly had not known that page existed. My eyes returned to the letter. The next sentence shattered whatever certainty remained inside me. I promised her father I would protect her. The problem is, somewhere along the way, I fell in love with her. The words refused to leave my mind. Somewhere along the way, I fell in love with her. I read the sentence again. Then again. The storm outside had begun to fade, but inside me everything was changing. For months, I had convinced myself that Adrian Romano only cared about control. That every protective gesture came from obligation. That every moment we shared was part of a promise he had made to my father. Now I was staring at proof that I had been wrong. Slowly, I lowered the letter. Adrian stood a few feet away, watching me with an expression I had never seen before. Not confidence, not authority, vulnerability, real and unguarded. You were never supposed to read that. His voice was barely above a whisper. I laughed softly through the tears gathering in my eyes. I think there are a lot of things I was never supposed to know. For a moment, neither of us moved. The mansion felt strangely quiet. The fear, the anger, the unanswered questions. They were still there, but they no longer stood between us the way they had before. Adrian took one careful step forward, then another. Not demanding, not controlling, just present. I should have told you the truth sooner. I nodded. Yes. Pain flickered across his face, but he did not look away. I thought I was protecting you. I glanced down at the letters resting in my hands. My father's words. My mother's story. Adrian's confession. Pieces of a life that had finally come together. Maybe you were, I said softly. But you forgot to let me choose. The honesty of that statement settled between us. Adrian nodded once, accepting it, not arguing, not defending himself. Outside, the vehicles beyond the gate slowly began to leave. One by one, their headlights disappeared into the darkness. Whatever threat had been hanging over this night seemed to dissolve with the storm. I walked toward the front door and looked out across the rain-soaked driveway. Just hours ago, I had been ready to leave forever. My suitcase still sat where I had dropped it, waiting, a symbol of the life I thought I wanted. Adrian remained behind me, giving me space, giving me a choice. For the first time since all of this began, nobody was trying to stop me. I could leave. I could walk away. The realization hit harder than any locked door ever could. Slowly, I turned around. Adrian's eyes met